bear with me here for a second. I got a little bit of context for my question, but you just painted yourself earlier as the victim of your felony, even though you knowingly made donations under the names of people that were not you. You've called Obama a boy out of the ghetto for using a selfie stick in the Oval Office. And this past week, you spread misinformation about the bombs that were mailed, even while people like Ben Shapiro said people spreading those conspiracy theories were deranged. So I'm wondering why, unlike Shapiro, you believe you even deserve a morsel of credibility.
Sure. Well, one of the things you have to realize in the world of social media is that we always start with limited information, right? There's these packages, they show up, and all we see are social media images of the packages. And so the first thing that people notice, not me, others on social media, is, wait a minute, this guy, homeless, living out of his van, somehow orchestrated packages to be delivered to all these important people to arrive on exactly the same day, and the images of them showed stamps on the package but no post office postmark on those stamps. And so people like me, I didn't even say who did it, I just raised questions. I'm like, what's going on here? Hey, I noticed that there isn't a stamp. Now, this is, you can call it amateur sleuthing, but it's not conspiracy theories. It is actually citizens trying to figure out what the hell is going on in our country. So this is not a sign of conspiracy mongering. Now, if it turns out that we're wrong, and the guy, let's just say, took his package, put stamps, and put that in a bigger package, which he then mailed, then we get it. That information comes out, we recognize it. So, as with the Kavanaugh hearings and all these things, we get snapshots of what is going on. And it's a moving picture, and we're trying to make a sense of the picture as it moves. It is a fallacy of logic to use the retroactive knowledge that we have at the end of the day to say, hey, you were wrong, so you're a conspiracy theorist. I didn't have that information at the time. So in other words, you can only judge people by the judgments they make in the moving current of events. Now, let's talk about the other things that you talked about. What were your other examples? You gave...
when you lied about being the
I
victim.
lied about, yeah.
You said you accidentally gave too much when you put it under the name of other people. That was
no, I'll tell you what happened. I mean, I'll describe exactly what happened since you raised the issue. My college friend Wendy Long was running for the Senate, and she asked me to help her. I told her not to run. I said, you're an unknown, you don't have any money, but she was running against a fellow Dartmouth grad, Christian Gillibrand, who's the sitting senator from New York. I said, but if you run, I'll try to help you. And so she decided to run. I wrote her a check for $10,000, and that's the limit, and I knew it. So I wrote her a check for the full amount. Then I released my Obama movie, and I'm in Dallas promoting it, and I'm at a premiere here, and I'm doing this, and I'm on the media there. And Wendy was calling me every day saying, I'm having an event in Scarsdale. Can you come and speak? I have a bunch of Indian doctors. I want to try to get some money out of them. You know, you're Indian, they're Indian. Can you come have dinner? I was like, no, I'm in San Diego. So I felt bad that I couldn't help her. I knew I'd reached the limit. So I asked two of my friends, I said, do you like Wendy Long? Give her $10,000 and I'll reimburse you. So that was my offense. I reimbursed two of my friends 10 grand. That's where the $20,000 came from. That's what I meant when I said I gave out of excessive zeal. I had no idea this was a felony. I had no idea the government would come after me in this way. Here's the key to my case. If you can find a single American who was locked up for 8 months for doing what I did, I will immediately accept error and back down. But no such case exists. I'm sorry?
Did you not see the inside of a prison?
I was in what's called a federal confinement center behind bars with 150 hardened felons sleeping in a dormitory on bunk beds. And so you can make of that what you will. All I'm saying is that hasn't happened to anyone else. In fact, I don't know anyone who was even indicted, let alone prosecuted for doing what I did. And what I did happens all the time in law firms where partners ask guys to give. It's a very common offense. It's never prosecuted. So justice isn't just a matter of did you do it. It's also a matter of the proportionality of the penalty to the offense and whether other people got the same crime. Think of it. If you're speeding, you broke the law, right? And if you got 3 years in prison and you said, that's unfair, I couldn't say to you, but you admitted it, you broke the law. Yes, you broke the law, but no one who speeds gets that. The penalty is not proportionate to the offense. That's what I'm trying to say. Not that I should have gotten off scot-free, not at all.
Hello, thank you for coming. My question is, well, you said quite correctly, I think, that a key difference between President Reagan and President Trump was that President Reagan went above the fray, whereas President Trump goes into the fray like a mud wrestler, like you said. So my question is, as a voice of support for both presidents, how do you reconcile that difference in strategy, and do you think one is more correct?
That's a very good question, and my answer is this, that I think that Reagan would be a fish out of water if he lived today. The waters are just too roiled for Reagan conservatism. One reason in my movie poster I somewhat audaciously juxtapose the images of Trump and Lincoln is that the one guy who, if he was alive today, would fully grasp the situation and not be flustered by it is Lincoln. Why? Because the waters were even more roiled in 1860. When people came up to Lincoln and said of Grant, he's a bum. He bankrupted his father's store. He's a womanizer. He's an alcoholic. Lincoln's only response was, but can he fight? But can he fight? Because the country is in a civil war, and Lincoln's argument was, we'll take up these other issues after the war is over. Now, Republicans have tried to nominate one Boy Scout after another. McCain, Romney, and they've noticed that these unimpeachable guys, Kavanaugh fits this category, by the way, because people kept saying in the hearings, you know, he said, she said. No, it's not he said, she said. It's he said, she said when a cop goes to a domestic violence complaint and you don't know anything about the two people and he said, she said. But if somebody accuses Albert Einstein of faking his equations, it's not he said, she said. Einstein is a Nobel laureate. He's been in public life. Innumerable people testify not only to his intellectual competence, but to his personal rectitude. And then some person shows out of nowhere, scrubs their social media, and he said, she said. You're not talking about an equal playing field here. Credibility doesn't equally attach to the accuser and the accused under that circumstance. So Republicans have said, you know, we try to put up these guys like Romney who have these squeaky clean resumes, and the left beats them to a pulp. You know, you're a rapacious, greedy swindler. How did you get $200 million? And here's poor Romney, you know, trying to explain. But notice that no one ever does this to Trump. Hey, how did you get $1 billion? You can't say that to Trump because he'll sit you down and explain why he has a lot more than $1 billion. That's Trump. In my opinion, it's not Trump who created the division created him. He's a response to it.
Oh, this is a little off topic, but you touched on Antifa and groups like that here in the United States. What's your, I guess, your input on the militias here in the United States and the role we should play?
I can't say I know a lot about the militia movement. I actually, years ago, Megyn Kelly asked me to go to the Bundy Ranch when there was a showdown with Cliven Bundy and a bunch of guys. I went not as a participant, but as an observer, and it was my first up-close look at a phenomenon that was very creepy, which is to say an attempt to amass vast federal force, and then a bunch of militia guys with a lot of weaponry determined to resist it. And I saw this as having the potential of Waco times 10, a massive showdown between the U.S. government and its own citizens. So that scared me. It scared me in the sense that the United States government, of course, has almost infinite firepower, as we all know. And we live at a time when that firepower is mobilized against American citizens. You'll be very surprised. You don't know it when it doesn't happen to you. But if your uncle gets arrested, and he could be a doctor who's arrested for administering, let's just say, illegal pain medicine, and the case is very debatable because doctors administer pain medicine all the time, but someone makes an indictment, and you expect it to be two FBI guys with a folder, and instead your uncle goes to a restaurant, and he's surrounded by police cars, and there's a helicopter overhead, and there are automatic weapons pointed at him, and this is the America we live in now. It's happening here, and you don't know it if it doesn't happen to you. But once it happens to you, you're not the same. It happened to me in a very small way. I'm not the same. And so our patriotism now has to be grounded in a recognition that there are very bad things happening in America, and we do need to be very vigilant about them. So no comment on the militias, but I will say that there are times when I feel like this America that we love is on a powder keg. and we've got to find a way to demilitarize, if I can use that term. But the demilitarize is not to take away all our guns so that we are sitting ducks, but rather to figure out a way that the government treats citizens fairly.